New York Liberty head coach Sandy Brondello has been fired. Code red, everybody alert. Sandy Brondello is out on the market. We got.
Okay, so the WNBA just dropped the biggest bombshell of the playoffs, and it came straight out of New York. The Liberty totally shocked everyone by firing their legendary head coach, Sandy Brondello, completely out of the blue. But here's the wild part. What looks like a total disaster for New York could actually be pure gold for Indiana. Seriously, if you're a Caitlin Clark fan or you root for the Fever, this move is screaming opportunity at the top of its lungs. And honestly, if you think the Fever should jump on this and make Brondello their next head coach, you gotta say it in the comments right now.
I think Sandy Brondello is the best option for us to get the Caitlin Clark of Iowa. Bring in Sandy. Bring in Sandy, and it's going to be showtime, because I believe if you get Sandy, Sabrina Ionescu's a free agent. Breanna Stewart is a free agent. We're talking big business now.
Listen, we need to talk about this seriously, because let's be honest, Brondello isn't just some random coach you find on a resume. She's the one who could actually unlock Caitlin Clark's full potential, taking her from a phenom to the undisputed greatest of all time. She brings tons of experience, that championship credibility we all respect, and a tactical vision that could give Clark exactly what she needs. Think about it. The freedom to just dominate, combined with the right structure to truly lead the team.
She's a great player. It would have been good for our crowd to see her, but hopefully they get to see her after post-All-Star. You get to play them again. As for the All-Star, I'm excited to get to know her a little bit. I think that's the part of the All-Star. It's going to coach players that you haven't coached before and get them to know them a little bit and enjoy the whole celebration.
And that's actually where the real problem starts. The more fans beg for this to happen, the more obvious it gets that the league itself would absolutely hate to see it come true. Because let's face it, if Caitlin Clark and Sandy Brondello ever teamed up, the WNBA's whole balance of power would shift so drastically and so quickly. It would totally expose every jealous veteran out there and every single half-baked storyline Commissioner Kathy Engelbert has been trying to push. In this video, we're going to dig into that whole agenda and show you exactly why this dream partnership absolutely terrifies the league.
Now, to me, Sandy doesn't strike me as a yes man. She strikes me as somebody, when she's talking to the general manager, she's going to speak her mind. She's just not going to, yes, GM, yes. Yes, general manager, I agree. Yes, general manager.
Okay, so let's actually talk about how we even got to this point. The Liberty had a fantastic regular season, no doubt about it. They were absolutely stacked with talent, won some huge games, and really carried themselves like true contenders. But then the postseason hit, and when the lights got super bright against the Phoenix Mercury, their weaknesses started to pop up. To be totally fair, injuries played a massive role here. Breanna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, and Jonquel Jones were all pretty banged up. But they didn't just sit out, they laced up their sneakers and battled through the pain, grinding every single possession like absolute warriors. Stewart even put up 30 points in that decisive elimination game, which was just a gutsy, all-time performance. But sometimes, pure heart and grit can only get you so far. The weight of all those injuries and the fatigue finally crushed them, and sadly, the Liberty season ended in heartbreak.
27-17, ravaged by injury all season long. Jonquel Jones out for a good part of the season. Breanna Stewart dealing with a knee issue during the playoffs. They lose in rounds.
But here's the kicker, though. After that brutal loss, not one single player blamed their coach. There wasn't even a whisper of discontent. In fact, the complete opposite happened. They all rallied around Sandy Brondello, standing shoulder to shoulder with her and promising they'd come back even stronger next season. Clips of Stewart, Ionescu, and other players backing their coach started blowing up all over social media. The message was so loud and clear. They absolutely believed in her. And then, boom, just one day later, the rug was pulled right out from under everyone. The Liberty's front office, led by their general manager, announced they weren't going to renew Brondello's contract. Just like that, she was gone.
The New York Liberty have let go Sandy Brondello. Well, in their terms, they will not renew her contract. In our eyes, they parted ways. She was fired essentially, but not as bad as being fired, I guess. But that's just how we talk out here. Nonetheless, I'm shocked. She's been a coach there for 4 seasons. You look at the past 3 seasons, she made it to the finals in her 2nd season. She won the finals in her 3rd season, and they lost in round 1 this year. Outside looking in, you look at this franchise and you see that's a successful franchise. New York is a powerhouse in the W right now.
So, the reaction was just instant chaos. Fans were completely stunned. Analysts absolutely shredded the decision, calling it reckless. Even rival teams, who honestly stand to gain from New York's implosion, couldn't help but just shake their heads in disbelief. Nobody, and I mean nobody, saw this coming. Not a single person thought the Liberty would actually cut ties with the coach who literally rebuilt their entire franchise into a powerhouse.
What would you say to those who question whether Sandy should be here next year to coach you guys again? I'm not saying I question it. There's just some people that do.
I mean, to anybody that kind of questions Sandy being here, like, this is a resilient group, and she has our back and we have hers. And the way that she continued to kind of, I don't know, deal with the cards she was dealt, like, was incredible. It wasn't easy for anybody, but she came in every day with a positive attitude and a mindset to put us in our best positions possible and best foot forward. So we're not going to be a team that points fingers. You know, there's a lot of us that could have done better this season, but we're still going to fight and show up for each other every single day, and I think that's what's the most important part. So we have Sandy's back.
Because let's just call this exactly what it is. This isn't just some coaching change. This is easily the dumbest move in Liberty history. They didn't just lose a coach. They actually lost the architect who built their championship culture from the ground up. They lost their absolute best shot at another title. And the ripple effects from this, they're going to be monumental.
Just saw this news and I went, what the bleep? Literally.
So why is everyone calling this the most catastrophic decision the Liberty have ever made? Just stick with me here, because when you zoom out and really look at Brondello's resume, her legacy, and what she actually accomplished in such a short amount of time, you'll see exactly why this is completely indefensible. Sandy Brondello isn't just good. She is truly elite. She's one of the most respected, decorated, and sought-after minds in the entire WNBA. That kind of reputation wasn't just handed to her either. She earned it brick by brick, season by season.
2 WNBA championships, and the year before, in 2023, won the Eastern Conference title. I mean, what are we doing? She's got a .600 winning percentage and a ton of experience.
Let's just look back at her timeline for a second. She took over in 2022, and right away, she turned the Liberty into playoff contenders in her very first season. That really set the tone, you know? Then in 2023, she pushed them even further. They racked up 32 wins with only 8 losses and made it all the way to the finals. They didn't quite grab the trophy that year, but they absolutely made a statement. Everyone knew New York was officially back.
Last 3 seasons, Sandy Brondello, 32-8, made the finals, lost to the Las Vegas Aces. 2024, made the finals.
Then came 2024, which was absolutely her masterpiece. The Liberty finally won their first ever WNBA championship. It was a dramatic Game 5, going into overtime against the Minnesota Lynx. And Brondello's team just fought and wrote history. She delivered the ring that New York had been chasing for decades. Fast forward to 2025, the team was completely shredded by injuries. Stewart, Ionescu, Jones, they were all hobbling through the year. But somehow, Brondello still willed them back into the playoffs. Think about that for a second. Most coaches would have totally collapsed under the weight of all those setbacks. But she still delivered results. That's exactly why the players defended her so fiercely after their elimination. And then, the front office just tossed her aside. No explanation that makes any sense. No real plan for what's next. Just a cold-blooded dismissal. That's not just messy, it's absolute insanity. And it's precisely why fans, analysts, and even rival teams are still screaming about how horrendous this call was.
Moments after a painful Game 3 loss, Brondello said the group was, quote, very disappointed, but she couldn't be more proud of her players. We faced adversity this year, which happens in sports, but we left it all out there. And that's all you can ask of this.
Here's a stat that just knocks you over, seriously. In only 4 seasons with New York, Sandy Brondello racked up 107 wins against just 53 losses. That's not just a decent record. No way. That's the kind of resume franchises dream about having. That's the gold standard for consistency and just flat-out winning. So when the Liberty's GM stood in front of the microphones and announced that Brondello was out, fans weren't just surprised, they were completely stunned. This wasn't just a regular headline, this was shockwaves ripping through the entire WNBA.
Outside looking in, you look at this franchise and you see that's a successful franchise. New York is a powerhouse in the W right now. So what is the issue? What is the front office looking at? What are the ownership?
But here's where the plot, and then the plot really thickens. The fallout from this whole thing didn't just spotlight New York, it immediately shifted the entire conversation over to Indiana. Why? Because suddenly, Sandy Brondello was available, and fans across the league were united in one massive demand. Indiana absolutely must dump Stephanie White and hire Brondello instead. That's just how seismic this firing truly was. The buzz wasn't quiet at all. It was a roar.
I know the Stephanie White defenders are going to be thick and deep. I don't care. I don't. She's a clear upgrade. And you've got an elite, all-time superstar.
Scroll through Twitter. It's everywhere. Seriously. Twitter, YouTube comments, Facebook groups, you name it. People are just yelling, hire Sandy, bring Brondello to Indiana. Clark deserves her. Fans aren't just writing cautious suggestions anymore, they're basically writing ultimatums. Why? Because in their eyes, Stephanie White has just totally worn out her welcome. There are way too many whispers about favoritism, too many questionable rotations, and just too many moments where she benched Caitlin Clark at the exact wrong times. The narrative is crystal clear. Indiana's recent progress isn't happening because of White. It's happening in spite of her.
Sabrina, you want to come for the party? Sandy, would you like to be in Indiana? Have you ever tried the Indiana barbecue out in the hood?
Come on. Fans are just flat out saying, even if White wins, we don't care. Sandy is the coach for the Fever's future. Think about that for a second. They're not waiting to see if Indiana delivers a title. They're already demanding a change. And at the very center of all this, the absolute fuel behind this firestorm is Caitlin Clark herself. Because let's face it, the demand for Brondello isn't really about Indiana in general. It's totally about the dream duo of Clark and Brondello. Fans see the vision, a coach who actually understands Caitlin, who trusts Caitlin, and who truly unleashes her instead of trying to box her in. And that brings us to the real kicker, the part the league absolutely does not want you to remember.
I think we need to make a move to get Sammy Brondello to the Indiana Fever, man. I think this is Sammy Brondello with Caitlin Clark. This is the closest thing we would get to Lisa.
Okay, roll the tape back to the 2025 WNBA All-Star Game. That's when Caitlin Clark completely shocked everyone by doing something no player had ever done before. She literally traded for a coach. Caitlin actually pulled some strings to make sure Brondello coached her squad. Just let that sink in for a minute. A superstar captain rearranged an entire all-star roster, not for specific teammates, but for a coach. That wasn't just some casual move, that was a massive statement.
Ever coach trade of any all-star game ever. Just want to get your thoughts on that in your mind. First for you, Leo.
They announced it?
Yeah.
That you got traded?
Yeah.
Oh, I got to go look at all that.
Traded.
I have no idea what the teams are.
Second time in history now. Geez, as a player. And I got traded, yes. My son hit me up he goes, I've created history. This is awesome. I got traded as a coach. But look, I get to coach with Sabrina. I'm on Caitlin Clark's in Indianapolis. I mean, what a great show. So we'll go out there and have some fun.
And once they actually got on the same sideline, the chemistry between them was just undeniable. Clark was sidelined with a groin injury at the time. But Brondello didn't treat her like some mascot. Nope. She made Caitlin an honorary assistant coach. We're talking clipboards in hand, calling plays, motivating her teammates. Clark looked like she was already running the league. And Sandy was right there, just amplifying her voice. Sandy even said out loud that Caitlin could coach as much as she wanted. How often do you hear that kind of thing from a veteran coach? Never. That just shows you how much respect Brondello truly has for Clark.
We could fix a lot of this we messed up. We can fix a lot of things that were messed up in the past off season. Let's fix it. Let's not be stubborn. Let's fix it.
And the fans saw all of that too, and they haven't forgotten it one bit. They point to that All-Star game as absolute proof that this is a partnership truly made in heaven. One fan even summed it up perfectly, saying, "The Fever need to sign Sandy and get rid of why Caitlin and Sandy are unstoppable together." That's not just exaggeration, that's pure conviction. Now here's the twist that makes all of this even spicier. A lot of fans actually believe the WNBA has an agenda against Clark, and by extension, against Brondello too. The theory goes like this. The league doesn't want Caitlin paired with the one coach who truly maximizes her power. And when you really start connecting the dots, it's honestly not hard to see why people would think that way.
I'm sorry. This is exactly the kind of coach. I've brought her name up a few times. I just never thought she'd be available, to be frank.
Look at the optics. Sandy Brondello laughs and bonds with Clark at the All-Star game, and then suddenly, she's out of New York? Coincidence? Or was that calculated? Fans are literally posting things like, "She smiled with Caitlin once, and now she's fired." It sounds totally over the top, I know, but given the way Clark has been treated, all those hard fouls ignored, her minutes slashed, being forced into schemes that just don't fit her game, does it really feel impossible? So why did New York even cut ties with Coach Sandy in the first place? That's the million-dollar question, right there. ESPN's reporting made it crystal clear. This wasn't just about one bad playoff exit. This was absolutely about politics, about power, and about a franchise trying to flex like it's bigger than the league itself. According to their sources, the Liberty front office had been circling this move for a while. Brondello's job was basically dangling by a thread unless she brought home a championship. It was title or bust, literally.
Winning the title, what exactly led to the parting of ways between the Liberty and Sandy Brondello here?
Well, Malika, I know you guys talk about this a lot in the NBA and in other sports, but it was really championship or bust for New York and for Sandy Brondello. And in fact, if they hadn't won the championship last year, we might have been having this conversation a year ago, which is maybe a little startling to fans outside, given how, excuse me for those noises, for how impactful she'd been for that franchise. But that is how bullish this organization is in New York.
Now let's just pause here for a second. How does that logic even hold up? You bring in a coach who completely rebuilds your franchise from the ground up, guides you to places you'd never even dreamed of reaching before, delivers more wins than any coach in Liberty history, and wins your first ever title, and your thank you note is a termination letter. That's like polishing off a 5-star steak dinner and then complaining to the waiter because the garnish wasn't Instagram worthy. It's just absurd. ESPN practically spelled it out. This wasn't about performance at all. It was purely about unreasonable expectations and pure power dynamics. See, the Liberty's ownership group, they're cut from that Wall Street cloth. They honestly think sports work like stock portfolios. If the numbers dip even slightly, you just cut the asset and buy a new one. There's absolutely no patience for context, no appetite for playing the long game. It's dominance on demand. And if you can't supply that every single season, they'll just find someone else they believe can. But here's the irony. Brondello wasn't just winning. She was winning in spite of massive challenges. Think about the injuries that sidelined her stars, the limited depth on the roster, and a grueling playoff run. she still coached them all the way to the finals. She still squeezed every ounce of fight out of her roster, and she still earned the respect of her players. Yet somehow, the front office twisted all of that into a failure.
I would expect them to really, again, be bullish in who they go after. We know that they are a WNBA franchise that invests a lot in a lot of resources, a lot of financial, capital into these decisions. So I think it wouldn't be shocking, though, if they decide to go after maybe someone in the NBA, someone that we might be a little bit more of a non-traditional hire. I do think Sandy Brondello has a great shot of getting hired again. We know what she has done in this league.
And here's where Caitlin Clark really comes into the picture. Because this isn't just about New York's decision, It's totally about how it ripples across the entire league. Clark isn't just a player anymore, she's the absolute face of women's basketball, where every single move is magnified and every word is dissected. And when a highly respected coach like Brondello openly praises her, acknowledges her massive impact, and actually dares to spotlight her importance, that shakes the old guard. It totally unsettles veterans who just don't want to admit that a second-year guard has already redefined the game. It rattles league executives who would much rather see the spotlight spread around more evenly. That's the subtext ESPN hinted at, but didn't quite fully say out loud. Brondello's willingness to truly validate Clark's influence just didn't sit well in certain powerful corners of the WNBA. And so, while the Liberty can dress this up as a business decision, fans see it for exactly what it really is, a pure political move. But here's the silver lining, the real hope. New York's devastating loss could actually be Indiana's golden opportunity. Just imagine Brondello taking the sidelines right next to Caitlin Clark. Imagine the league's most empowering coach paired with its most transcendent player. That's not just a good fit, that's an absolute revolution waiting to happen.
New York Liberty just fired their head coach. People are confused as to why, because they won the championship last year. They made the playoffs this year. In sports, there's always a scapegoat when things aren't going the way that they wanted it to go. Clearly, in New York, the standard has been raised. As Coach Tibbs learned with the New York Knicks, making the playoffs does not guarantee that you are safe anymore. They have raised the standard. They're sending a message to the fans, to the team, saying, we don't want to just go to the playoffs. We need to go to the finals and we need to win. So if it's not the players on the court that are changing, it's got to be the coaching staff. So unfortunately, that did mean Coach Sandy.
Because here's the reality. Brondello is the one coach who doesn't treat Caitlin like a young player who needs to be controlled. She treats her like a generational leader who needs to be unleashed. That kind of freedom is absolutely terrifying to a league that's built entire systems around limiting Clark's dominance. And that's exactly why so many people believe the WNBA won't ever allow a Brondello-Clark reunion in Indiana. That's the painful irony right there. The perfect combination is just sitting there, plain as day. Fans see it, analysts see it, even Caitlin herself clearly knows it. Yet, the very people in power, the ones who should supposedly want to grow the game, are the ones standing directly in the way. Which brings us to the big question hanging over this whole situation. Not, can this happen? But will they ever allow it to happen? So I'll leave it to you. Is this just a coincidence, or is it part of a bigger plan to keep Caitlin Clark from truly reaching her full potential? And if Brondello and Clark ever do team up, would it completely shatter the WNBA's balance of power? If you think the Fever should jump in and make Brondello their next head coach, you gotta type it in the comments right now. Grab Brondello now.